In February, MTSU kicked off its celebration of Black History Month with the annual Unity Luncheon, a tradition on campus. The event is held every year to recognize African American citizens who have contributed their time and talent for the enrichment and welfare of the community, as well as the state of Tennessee. This year's honorees are Reverend Goldie L. Wade, Worden McKnight, Roy D. Dukes, Ernestine Johnson, and Carolyn Peebles. The luncheon was attended by campus faculty and administrators, including President Sidney A. McPhee, as well as friends and family of the honorees. Dr. Sharon Shaw McEwen was the keynote speaker for the event and remarked on how people can enrich the lives of others every day.
It is indeed quite an honor for all of us to be here to celebrate what you have done, as Dr. McPhee has stated, often in an unsung way.
These are the people that we should be holding up in our society as role models. And we are proud to be a part of recognizing these individuals.
All of the honorees felt honored and humbled to be part of such an event. To these remarkable men and women, their contributions to the community were not done for some type of recognition, but because they simply feel it is their duty to do so.
I feel very honored, quite humble. I guess if I'm looking for a term, I feel very humble, but proud that someone see fit to recognize me.
It will feel very humble and surprised, and I just give all glory to God because, you know, I just didn't have a clue.
I don't consider myself as a hero. I just consider myself as a person just do what's necessary for young people and adults to make them successful in life.
Recently, MTSU students joined students from across Tennessee for the 6th annual Posters at the Capitol. At this event, 6 Tennessee Board of Regents universities, along with 3 University of Tennessee campuses, presented their research.
They really represent MTSU well, and you know, they do a great job on their research. They do such interesting projects, and projects that actually impact the state, the taxpayer, and of course their future.
Posters set up throughout the halls of the State Capitol building helped legislators meet students from their districts and enabled these legislators to see firsthand the outstanding research that these students are conducting.
Our research has been, it's considered green chemistry. We've been taking reactions that are done in industry a lot, like the pharmaceutical industry, developing drugs, and running these reactions in an environment that's safer. We are not using these organic solvents, trying to find a different alternative that isn't so bad for the environment and for humans.
The research I do focuses on creating new drugs for HIV therapy and Alzheimer's therapy. And the class of drugs we focus on are called peptidomimetics. Although that's a long name, it actually just means that it's a drug that mimics a peptide.
Well, we've actually, with the study of the groundwater flow, you look at concerns of E. coli contamination, for instance. You want to know where your groundwater is going and where it's coming from so that you can know what's in it, what's getting into it, what may come out of it, and where that might happen.
6 years ago, when I was a member of the House, Dean Cheatham had come to me with the idea of doing posters at the Capitol, which has been done, I believe, in several other states around the country, and we were delighted to work to help him set it up. So this, I believe, is the 6th year. It gives students an opportunity to show their work to their legislators from back home as well as other legislators around the country. I had no idea the extent and the depth of the work that the students were doing at not only MTSU, but all the TBR institutions. So it's a wonderful way to show off the work of what higher education is doing and why it's all meaningful and worthwhile.
This event has two main goals: to expose legislators to undergraduate research and to introduce undergraduates to their legislators.
This is a really important event for MTSU and other schools in Tennessee to get in touch with their legislators and let them know how much impact research has on even undergraduate students.
I think it helps to tell the story of higher education to legislators from all around the state to show what actually is going on in our various institutions.
Superstition, legend, myth, whatever you want to call it, people believe in crazy things. Like something bad's gonna happen to me if I, do this. Well, maybe I shouldn't. Are you superstitious?
Am I superstitious? No, not at all.
No, I'm not.
Do not subscribe to superstition at all.
Slightly.
Not really. Not very superstitious. I used to be very superstitious, not so much anymore.
I wouldn't consider myself very superstitious. I don't know.
It's a good question, because I was just talking to my friend earlier about walking through the middle part of the quad and how you're not supposed to graduate.
Have you ever walked across that seal in the quad?
Yes.
Every day. I make a point of it, actually, just to prove, although I haven't graduated yet.
I did. I always walk across it on purpose, just to prove it wrong.
I avoid it, but I'm not superstitious. So I guess I am.
If a penny is tails up, would you pick it up?
A penny's a penny.
No.
I don't know.
You wouldn't pick it up?
No.
Pick them up every day.
Tails up?
Either way, my luck never changes.
I don't touch it. Don't even look at it.
I'd pick it up and stick it in my pocket.
You would still pick it up? That doesn't matter?
Oh yes, money's money.
Better not. Supposed to graduate in May. Can't risk it. So if you see a black cat cross your path, doesn't scare you?
Prove to me there's something wrong with a black cat.
Oh, black cats, that's like the worst one. If I see a black cat, I'm turning around the other direction.
Walking under a ladder, would you do it?
Done that and fallen from a ladder. So.
On a daily basis, I walk underneath the ladder, putting up lights.
You think you're gonna graduate in 4 years?
Yeah, of course.
We'll see in May.
Even if you don't believe, some people are very superstitious. I'm Nikki DeCroce for Out of the Blue.
How sky high can you go? Have you ever wanted to test your strength, finesse, and knowledge about the sky? Sky high is the game for you. You gotta try sky high.
We started in 1911 with a clear mission to train Tennessee's best teachers. For the last 100 years, Middle Tennessee State University has carried out that mission and so much more. Nationally recognized as an affordable quality university, the #1 choice of undergraduates in Tennessee. As we celebrate our centennial, we look with pride at the past. We look forward to the future. Check out why we're Tennessee's best.
MTSU, it's different here.
Well, we're back with more of Out of the Blue. Hi again, I'm Bob Pondillo. I'm professor of Mass Media and Culture at Middle Tennessee State over in the MassCom building. And we have a special guest today. Our friend Dr. John Vial is here. Dr. Vial is a professor of political science, a constitutional law scholar as well. And we're going to talk about the Repeal Amendment. Maybe you've heard about this. Well, let's find out more about it. First of all, John, thanks for coming by.
Glad to be here.
What is this Repeal Amendment?
Well, it's actually a proposed amendment.
Proposed.
Okay. It's an amendment that's been proposed in Congress that would allow 2/3 of the state legislators to come back and repeal either a part or a whole of any existing federal law.
Okay, the state would be able to repeal a federal law?
2/3 of the states.
Well, 2/3? Oh,
that's
wow.
right.
Okay, that sounds a little unusual. I don't know if that's good or bad. I understand that a lot of people are concerned about the power of the federal government, but this
That's right,
kind
and
of
it's what's fascinating about it is while this particular amendment proposal is relatively new, it actually harkens back to a theme, throughout American history. In the very beginning, when the Constitution was being debated, the anti-federalists who opposed the Constitution were afraid that the new national government would be too powerful. And then, you have times like the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions that were adopted in 1898 to sort of clip the powers of Congress.
Right.
Obviously, the events leading to the Civil War, the 1960s, and throughout. This, I think, is a bit different than most of the other proposals. I'm somewhat sympathetic to the notion that, in federalism, it's important to give both states and national government their due. But I'm very concerned that this sort of throws a monkey wrench, if you will, into the existing legislative process. Might have some consequences that we didn't intend.
Now, would this be because of the health care debate that we're having, or Obama? There's some enmity between Obama and the Congress.
I'm sure that's probably part of it, but I think it's really a larger concern, and it dates back in part to the adoption of the 17th Amendment. Early in American history, state legislators chose U.S. senators, and as a result, senators were arguably a little bit more attuned to the interest of their states as states. And in what most people regard as a fairly progressive, more democratic move, senators are now directly elected by the people, but as a consequence, they might not be quite as attuned to federalism issues, and this is designed in part to redress that balance.
As Americans, we've always been very careful, very worried about one branch or some branch having too much power.
Sure.
I guess it's a strain from England and what have you, fear of the monarch.
I think it is. Lord Acton, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Sure.
And, I think maybe what proponents of this amendment forget is that states are still very well represented, not only in the Senate, but also in the House. Every person elected to the U.S. House of Representatives is from a district within an individual state. And of course, this also blends over to the Electoral College, where votes are allocated in part on the basis of states.
So what then gives this repeal amendment juice now? What makes it rear its head right now?
Well, again, I mean, probably some of the same factors that we saw in the last election. Pretty big turn. We had a fairly extraordinary Democratic majority. Democrats tend to be generally a little bit more on the pro-national government, less likely for states' rights. And I guess, sort of my attitude toward it is if we give it another election cycle or two, to the extent that there are legitimate concerns, they're probably already going to be reflected within, within those elections without this amendment.
Sure. Well, take me through the process then. If this thing, is it possible? Is it probable something like this could happen?
Sure. I mean,
the
beauty of the amending process is it's difficult, and some people would say, well, why is that the beauty? Well, the beauty is because Constitution is designed to be fundamental law. It's not designed to be as changeable as ordinary legislation. But to adopt an amendment, you need 2/3 of both houses of Congress to propose and 3/4 of the states to adopt. Now, in this case, that's almost impossible, because why would 2/3 of the members of Congress give up their final power over legislation? But there is an alternate mechanism within the amending provision, which is in Article 5, and that would enable 2/3 of the states to call a constitutional convention to amend the Constitution.
What are we, back in the 1700s?
Well, and actually, I mean, it's a perfectly legitimate constitutional process. It's how we got our current Constitution. But usually, as you know, there was actually a period in the 60s after the reapportionment rulings by the Supreme Court where we came 1 to 3 states shy of having enough states to call a constitutional convention. And I think usually the closer we get to that, the more people, they say, well, yes, we want this done, but what if the convention decided instead to, very unlikely, repeal the First Amendment? Or what if they decided instead to do something else? So usually, often what happens if you get close to a convention, and this is actually how the 17th Amendment was adopted, states said, well, if Congress won't propose this amendment, we'll do it. And the closer the states got to proposing a convention, the more willing the senators were to say, well, let's go ahead and see if the states want to adopt this or not.
Oh, I see.
So there's sort of a give and take there.
Yeah,
there is.
Very interesting. But let me just go back one step. So it would be possible, because this is a repeal amendment, so they could repeal anything. Is that
That's right. And
so
not only that, they could repeal any provision of any federal law. So they would actually have, the president does not have, he has a veto, but he doesn't have an item veto. Right. This would effectively give the states not only a real veto, but an item veto. And of course, the great fear is they might pick and choose. They might choose to continue every spending program and oppose every taxing program. Then we could be even more out of kilter than we are now in terms of our national budget, national debt.
And I know a lot of people, if you ask on the street about the First Amendment, a lot of people would say, I think we should shut people up.
Well, what happens is we're committed generally to the principle of the First Amendment. The application becomes a little bit more, well, I think everybody should speak, but a communist, a Nazi, Klansman, then we begin to have second thoughts.
Sure. I think all the more reason to let them speak, because when they speak,
I agree.
You find out exactly what type of people they are.
Sure.
Anyway, well, this is fascinating stuff. I'm amazed that it got this far, to tell you the truth.
Well, and again, I mean, right now, as far as it's gotten is you have a couple law professors who are advocating. You have a couple members of Congress who've agreed to sponsor it. It hasn't been approved by 2/3 majorities of
Has it been
each
introduced?
house.
It has been
introduced. Oh,
introduced.
it's been introduced.
So
it's there. But there have been 11,500 or so amendments proposed in American history. Of them, Congress only approved 33. And we've only ratified 27. So
right. Wow.
There's a sieve process there that's fairly effective in weeding out proposals like this that probably have good sentiment behind them, but probably shouldn't be adopted.
I would agree. Well, if you will, please keep an eye on that for us.
We'll do it.
Love to have you back and talk some more. This is
to.
Dr. John Weil, our friend from the Honors College, Dean of the Honors College, also professor of political science and a constitutional law scholar, was with us today talking about the Repeal Amendment. And we'll have a lot more on Out of the Blue right after this. Stay with us.
The yoga chair is supposed to help boys and girls pay attention in class, because we have so much energy inside of us that we would like to get out.
We started in 1911 with a clear mission to train Tennessee's best teachers. For the last 100 years, Middle Tennessee State University has carried out that mission and so much more. Nationally recognized as an affordable quality university, the #1 choice of undergraduates in Tennessee. As we celebrate our centennial, we look with pride at the past. We look forward to the future. Check out why we're Tennessee's best.
This is not just a recording studio.
This is not just a flight school.
This is not just a university.
This is MTSU, home of Tennessee's best.
Out of their minds. That's right. This year's Invention Convention at Middle Tennessee State University welcomed more than 400 4th, 5th, and 6th graders who exhibited creative games and inventions from out of their minds. Their rich imagination was surpassed only by their eagerness to share their creations.
How sky high can you go? Have you ever wanted to test your strength, finesse, and knowledge about the sky? The Sky High is the game for you. You gotta try Sky High.
Our game is Survive the Disasters, and it shows that good things can also take place during disasters. It's not just bad things. Like communities come together and help out. Like I'm sure you guys know about the flood that happened. Our downtown got flooded, and our community and church came together and helped out clean up the flooding.
My game is Twister Fact, and it's similar to the original Twister game, but when you spin the spinner, whatever question it lands on, you have to put your hand or foot on the answer. And there are 4 different spinners and 4 different categories.
The yoga chair is supposed to help boys and girls pay attention in class, because we have so much energy inside of us that we would like to get out.
I made it by I took a small spatula and I hot glued them onto the whisk, and it makes life easier because instead of using 2 utensils to get batter like out of a bowl whenever you're making pancakes or anything, you can just use 2 utensils without having to reach over and get another one.
This invention helps you when you're at school or if you're at home and you have to stop reading and you're in the middle of a paragraph. You record your voice from what paragraph you're on and what sentence or what page, and you just play it back so you know exactly where you were when you left off.
The youngsters competed in 2 categories, games and something to make life easier. This year's featured invention was Play-Doh, and Norm McVicker, the son of Play-Doh inventor Noah McVicker, was this year's special guest speaker. Dr. Lana Sievers, Education Dean at MTSU, is a big fan of the Invention Convention, which is sponsored annually by partner State Farm Insurance.
I think the Invention Convention sparks such creativity in children. We talked about they're not having as many opportunities for higher order thinking skills. And in these cases, they have identified a problem or a need, and they come up with a solution themselves. And if you've seen some of these children, they've linked it to what they're studying in school, whether it's science or mathematics or just a personal need. So it's just an exciting thing. I've been involved with Invention Convention since I was a principal in Oak Ridge way back. So it's been around a long time. And I think in these days where we think all about the test, only that once-a-year test, these kinds of things help us see that the enrichment kind of activities really are an asset. They shore up our skills. They give us more exciting ways to learn the curriculum standards rather than just the old drill kinds of things. So to me, this is one of the best things we could do. The really outstanding teachers find ways to spark that motivation, that creativity. They're excited about teaching children new ways to approach the same old problems. So no, I don't think we are losing it. I think it's more of a challenge to find time in the school day. And it takes a lot of time to plan activities like this and to get kids excited. That's what good teachers do every day, though.
We have 401 children this year, and we have 197 inventions and approximately 30 different schools from the surrounding area. And that includes private schools as well as public schools.
Dr. Tracy Ring, founder of the event, has put together the Invention Convention for the past 19 years. After all that time, she says she is still surprised at the ingenuity and originality that come out of those young minds.
Every year is different. The children are different. The inventions are different. It's a whole new ball game every time. The teachers pretty much remain the same, but that adds a level of excitement too, because they already have expectations, so they know how to guide the children and how to direct the children. So they have a way of encouraging more creativity and a different level of ingenuity, if you will.
You can tell a lot about a university by the company it keeps. From the Podium is a new feature on Out of the Blue that highlights visiting distinguished scholars who share insights and observations. In February, the expertise that emanated from the Podium included a Wall Street Journal economist.
How many of you actually read the Wall Street Journal editorial page? Raise your hand if you read the editorial page.
A civil rights attorney who represented Rosa Parks and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I was going to finish law school, return to Alabama, pass the bar exam, become a lawyer, and destroy everything segregated I could find. That was my personal commitment.
An obesity prevention scientist and activist.
So it takes a village to raise a child's physical activity level.
And a biblical scholar who told the audience they shouldn't believe everything they read in the scriptures.
How we got the books of the New Testament. And so that's the topic of this lecture, which I've called Misquoting Jesus, how scribes who change the Bible and readers who may never know.
Next month, From the Podium will include banjo artist Bela Fleck, expert on the subject of bullying Gary Namey, and author, scholar, and political activist Angela Davis.
Join us in celebrating 100 years of MTSU history. Check out the Centennial Timeline at mtsu.edu/centennial.